I installed a legally approved disabled parking sign in front of my house. I never imagined it would spark a war with the HOA president, who literally brought a saw to fight it. She thought the rules protected her. She forgot the law protected me. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I post true stories every week about justice, drama, and unexpected revenge. Hit that like button if you believe in standing your ground, and stick around until the end, because trust me, the ending will leave you speechless. I never imagined that a simple parking sign would ignite a war, but here I am, caught in the crosshairs of a woman who treated her HOA presidency like a throne. My name is Daniel. 3 years ago, after a car accident left me with partial mobility in my right leg, I moved into Sycamore Heights. Quiet streets, clean sidewalks, and a driveway wide enough for my adaptive van, it felt like a safe place to start over. But I hadn't met Linda Pearson yet. Some called her Karen behind her back. I soon found out why. After going through all the necessary channels, I finally received city approval for a disabled parking sign in front of my house. It went up on a sunny Tuesday morning. By Wednesday, something felt off. The pole was leaning. I checked my security footage. And there she was. Linda Pearson, HOA president, wearing pristine capris and a pastel cardigan, marched up to my sign with garden shears and started sawing through the pole like it was a rogue shrub. I emailed her, politely asking for an explanation. Her reply was immediate and unapologetic. "That sign violates HOA aesthetic guidelines," she wrote. "Remove it or face daily fines." I replied with links to the ADA and city ordinances, explained that this was federally protected. Her response? "Not in Sycamore Heights it isn't." The next morning, the sign was gone. Not removed, destroyed. This time she used an electric saw. I had it all on camera. She looked straight into the lens with a smug smile before walking away like she just trimmed her hedges. I couldn't believe the audacity. I needed that space. On bad days, even a short walk from the driveway felt like climbing Everest. Still, I kept it civil. I emailed her again, tone professional, no threats. "You probably didn't realize the sign was damaged. I'm reinstalling it per city ordinance. Attach legal proof." Her reply came within minutes. "Application denied." That's when she made her first mistake. What she didn't know was, I'm an attorney. Not just any attorney. I specialize in property law. I called my contact at the city. "We've had problems with that HOA before," she sighed. The crew came out Friday to reinstall the sign. But this time, I prepared. I set up 2 cameras, one traditional, one motion-activated hidden inside a birdhouse. My neighbor, also a Linda victim, helped me mount it. And sure enough, Saturday morning at 6 sharp, she appeared. Tracksuit on, cordless reciprocating saw in hand. Determined. Focused. She started cutting. I watched from my phone in real time, jaw clenched. I had already filed a report with the police the day before, just in case. Now, it was time to act. As I watched Linda hack through that metal pole, I dialed 911 with hands that trembled, not from fear, but from years of pent-up frustration finally rising to the surface. When the dispatcher answered, I calmly explained what was happening, referencing the previous complaint. "She's destroying city property again. It's all on camera." The police arrived in minutes. 2 officers in a patrol car that rolled up just as Linda was finishing her sabotage. The timing couldn't have been better. She froze when she saw them, her mouth forming a perfect circle of surprise, the saw still humming in her hand. Then, in a ridiculous act of denial, she tried to hide it behind her back, as if that would erase the evidence. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" one officer asked, though the scene spoke for itself. Linda didn't miss a beat. "Board inspection," she said, voice syrupy but firm. "This sign wasn't approved by the HOA Architectural Committee." The confidence in her voice almost made me question reality. Almost. I stepped outside, holding my phone out like a shield. "Officers, I have footage of 3 separate incidents, plus city permits and medical documentation. This is not an HOA matter." This is vandalism. Officer Rodriguez, his nameplate gleamed in the morning sun, watched the footage in silence. Linda stood there, arms folded, jaw tight, still convinced she was in the right. HOA rules don't override federal law, he finally said. Especially not the Americans with Disabilities Act. Linda's face twitched, a faint tick at the corner of her eye. I have every right to remove unauthorized installations. Not city-issued ones, Officer Rodriguez corrected her. They issued her a citation on the spot. That should have been the end. A slap on the wrist. A fine. Maybe a public apology if she had a shred of humility. But Linda Pearson wasn't done. That afternoon, she sent an HOA-wide email to every resident in Sycamore Heights. I found out because my neighbor forwarded it to me with the subject line. Can you believe this? The email accused me of abusing disability accommodations. Claimed I wasn't disabled enough to need the sign. Attached photos of me walking my dog, carrying groceries, pictures taken without my knowledge. That was the final straw. I wasn't just angry. I was humiliated. Violated. She had crossed into legal and moral territory so far removed from common decency it felt surreal. I called my doctor, who immediately provided a written statement. Then the city's Disability Resource Center, who were appalled. Then a colleague, an expert in civil rights law. Together, we filed for an emergency injunction and a restraining order. I wasn't backing down anymore. Linda Pearson thought she could bully me into submission. She was about to learn that some of us know exactly how to fight back, and which laws to use when the rules no longer apply. 2 weeks later, we stood face to face in court. Linda Pearson, wrapped in entitlement and pearls, arrived with the HOA's attorney in tow. Her expression was calm, almost smug, as if she expected the judge to thank her for her civic vigilance. I stood alone, but I wasn't unarmed. I had my documentation, my law degree, and a flash drive loaded with footage that told a story no courtroom theatrics could spin. Judge Michaels presided over the hearing. Known for her no-nonsense approach to community disputes, she radiated authority even before speaking. Linda's attorney opened strong, giving a passionate speech about HOA rights and neighborhood aesthetics. He avoided all mention of vandalism or harassment. It was almost laughable. When my turn came, I simply inserted the flash drive. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the screen came to life. First clip, Linda snipping at the pole with garden shears. Second, her slicing through it with an electric saw, smiling smugly into the camera. Third, the live footage of her wielding a reciprocating saw as police arrived. Audible gasps filled the room. Then I displayed her email questioning the legitimacy of my disability, her phrasing dripping with accusation. Faking it for perks, she had written. Judge Michaels watched in silence, her brow tightening with each new piece of evidence. When it ended, she took off her glasses, leaned forward, and looked directly at Linda. Ms. Pearson, are you aware that tampering with a disability accommodation is a civil rights violation? That publicly challenging someone's documented disability without cause borders on defamation? Her voice was calm but razor-sharp. Linda's attorney tried to interrupt, but the judge raised a hand to silence him. The court grants the restraining order. Ms. Pearson is to remain at least 50 feet from the plaintiff's property at all times. The words rang like a bell in a cathedral. Furthermore, Judge Michaels continued, a civil fine of $5,000 will be issued for the rights violation. This case is also being referred to the district attorney's office for review of potential criminal charges. I glanced at Linda. Her face had gone completely pale, her mouth slightly open in stunned disbelief. For the first time since I met her, she looked small. Powerless. The courtroom was silent except for the tapping of the clerk's keyboard. Then the judge spoke again, calmly but with finality. Additionally, I'm ordering Ms. Pearson to step down as HOA president, effective immediately. Her actions show a dangerous misunderstanding of HOA authority and a disturbing pattern of harassment. That shattered her. You can't do that, she blurted, voice cracking. The HOA bylaws don't give you that right. Judge Michaels barely flinched. The law gives me that authority. Unlike HOA regulations, my orders are enforceable. Court officers, if Ms. Pearson continues to disrupt these proceedings, you may escort her out. Linda slumped back into her chair, defeated. The empire she ruled with threats and fines had just collapsed, in front of everyone. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. Outside the courtroom, Linda stood motionless in the hallway, eyes locked on her phone screen. I knew exactly what she was reading, the official court order, emailed to all parties within minutes of the verdict. For someone who thrived on control, the cold finality of legal language must have felt like an earthquake. She didn't look angry anymore. Just lost. Her carefully built kingdom, weekly fines, architectural approvals, intimidation masked as policy, had collapsed like a house of cards in the wind. I didn't linger to enjoy the sight. I had no interest in revenge. What I wanted, and finally had, was the ability to live in my own home without fear. But Linda wasn't done, not entirely. That evening, Sycamore Heights buzzed with whispered conversations and forwarded emails. Word spread quickly. Some neighbors reached out with kind words, quiet apologies for not stepping in sooner. One older couple brought me cookies, muttering that they'd always hated how she weaponized the bylaws. But others remained silent, even skeptical. HOA loyalty ran deep in some, and Linda's smear campaign had left its stains. I wasn't surprised when a small group demanded a special meeting to discuss leadership transitions. It reeked of damage control. But what they didn't expect was how many residents were ready for change. At that meeting, held in the community clubhouse 2 weeks later, the air was thick with tension. Linda showed up, despite the order barring her from involvement. She sat in the back, arms crossed, glaring. A new interim president was elected, Mrs. Carmichael, a retired school principal with a reputation for fairness and zero tolerance for bullying. Her first act was to propose a community review of the HOA's treatment of disabled residents. The motion passed almost unanimously. I didn't speak during the meeting. I just watched. Watched as the same people who once looked away now found their voices. And Linda? She tried to speak once, but Mrs. Carmichael firmly reminded her of the court order. That shut her up. Afterward, I walked home slowly, the evening breeze cool against my skin. My phone buzzed, another neighbor, another apology, another quiet thank you. It felt surreal. For so long, I'd been the outsider, the problem, in Linda's perfect picture. Now, that frame had shattered. And I was no longer just a man with the sign. I was the reason the silence broke. In the days that followed, I noticed changes. People smiled more. Conversations bloomed at mailboxes instead of being hushed when someone walked by. And my sign? Still standing, straight and unbothered, lit by a small solar light I'd added just because I could. It became a symbol, not just of my right to access, but of something bigger. Resistance. Boundaries. The quiet power of saying, no. Not anymore. A month passed, then 2. Life in Sycamore Heights gradually returned to something resembling normal, though not the old kind of normal, the brittle, polite silence that used to hang between neighbors like a fog. No, this was something new. A cautious trust. A community slowly remembering how to be human again. People began attending HOA meetings who'd never shown up before. Questions were asked. Rules were actually debated instead of handed down like commandments from a throne. And while no one said her name aloud anymore, everyone knew what had changed everything. Linda Pearson had vanished from public life. Her house, once the hub of HOA activity, stood quiet, curtains drawn, the immaculate flowerbeds slowly surrendering to weeds. I didn't celebrate her fall, but I didn't mourn it either. I'd fought for something basic, dignity. The right to live without being scrutinized, challenged, or humiliated because of my body. The right to need something without having to prove myself every time I left the house. And I'd won. But the scars were still there. I started therapy again, this time focusing not on my accident, but the aftermath, how powerlessness takes root in small moments, a disapproving glance, An email sent to an entire neighborhood questioning your worth. Healing wasn't about erasing those things. It was about no longer letting them define you. One afternoon, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address, just my name and street number on the front. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper. "I was wrong," it said. "I still think the sign looks out of place, but that never gave me the right. I hope someday you can forgive me." No signature, but I knew the handwriting. I sat with that note in my hands for a long time. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just still. I didn't need her apology. But I understood what it cost her to write it. That mattered more than she probably realized. I never replied. What could I say? That I forgave her? That it didn't matter? Both would be lies in some way. Instead, I kept the note tucked inside the folder with all my court documents. A reminder of what I'd survived. What I'd reclaimed. These days, I don't think about Linda much. But every time I pull into that parking space, pain flaring in my leg, groceries in hand, dog leash looped around my wrist, I smile. Not because I won. Not even because the sign still stands. I smile because I stayed. I didn't let someone like her push me out of my home, or out of myself. That's the victory. That's the real story. And if one day someone else faces the same kind of fight, I hope they remember this. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand your ground, and film everything. What would you have done in my place? Drop your thoughts below. Have you ever dealt with an overreaching HOA or neighborhood drama? Don't forget to check out the next video for more real-life twists that prove the truth is stranger than fiction.